In the First Berserker Khazan game, there are several little collectibles called the Jarlings that you can collect throughout the entire game that unlock specific rewards depending on how many you collect. In this video, I'll be going over those rewards and where you can find every single Jarling in the game. Let's get into it. Now there's a couple really early game locations where you can find Jarlings, but you can only start seeing them and finding them after you have completed the first act of revenge that unlocks another side mission. Once you have completed that mission, make your way back to the crevice and talk to this particular guy who is usually the vendor you can sell items to. Once you have completed this main mission, he should have a bonus mission for you that is going to be called Jar Enthusiasts. Accepting this quest will unlock the Jar Enthusiast side quest that you have to complete to have Jarlings start showing up inside of your game. This is a non-negotiable type of situation. You have to complete this side mission to have Jarlings start showing up in your game. Now to truly begin this side mission, you have to talk to Danjin, who is going to have a jar on his head that looks also like a human, but he's also going to have these small little creatures next to him that have jars on their heads. Those are going to be called Jarlings. Your goal in this side quest is to find 6 of these little Jarlings throughout this entire mission. That is going to allow you to complete the mission inside of this side quest and then also allow you to see Jarlings through every single mission throughout the game. Now the very first Jarling location in this mission is very close to where you first interact with Danjin. All you have to do is follow the path that I'm showing you, and it is a small side quest, so it'll be very easy to follow the pathing that I'm showing you for this particular side mission. Once you come across your first rope bridge, you're going to see a bunch of jars surrounding this rope bridge as well as being in front of the rope bridge. All you have to do is break the jars in front of the rope bridge, and this first little Jarling is going to be right in front of you. Interact with the Jarling and he will be sent back to Danjin, and we can move on to the next location. From the previous location where we just were, you want to continue through the main path inside of this side quest, going past a lot of different invisible enemies, and as soon as you get in between 2 different houses, you'll want to go inside the house that the ladder is attached to. Once in here, you want to go to the corner and you'll be able to see a small pot that you can break to get the next Jarling. From the previous Jarling location, continue through the main path until you go up another ladder. As soon as you get up the ladder, you want to go into the house on your left, and inside of here you'll see another jar that looks a little different, and you should also feel your controller or mouse vibrate, letting you know that you are close by to a Jarling. From the previous location, continue through the main mission a little bit more until you come across a house on the left with a very open door. Go inside of here, and in the corner you can break another jar to get the next Jarling. Continue forward again until you come across your first small arch. Right next to the small arch on the right side will be a group of jars that you can break to get the next Jarling. Continue through the main path one last time until you come across the big wooden door. To the left of the big wooden door, you're going to see 2 pots on their own. All you have to do is break them, and the back one is going to have the final Jarling. Now once you have the final Jarling, you will get the mission completed, and you will be teleported in front of a sword that allows you to go directly back to the crevice to interact with Danjin again, telling you he has a lot more jars for you to find. At this point, you'll be able to see every single Jarling inside of the game, so let's get back to the list outside of this specific side quest and go from the beginning to find every Jarling. Starting in the very first mission, Banished Hero, inside of the Charnak Mountains, you want to simply go back to where you first started the game, literally progress forward until you can break one of your first jars on the right, and that will have your very first Jarling. Still in the Charnak Mountains, in the Trials of the Frozen Mountain, you want to progress until you come across the Ice Canyon Blade Nexus point. Literally next to this Blade Nexus point, break the jars and you'll find the Jarling in this mission. In the Forgotten Temple main mission inside of the Embar's Ruin, you want to progress the mission until you come across the second time you can stop the giant spinning disc inside of the game. Once you have stopped the disc for the second time, you continue through the main path until you see a small staircase to your left. To the left of that staircase, you can break the pots to find the next Jarling. Next, back in the first act of Revenge mission, you want to make your way to the Central Storehouse entrance Blade Nexus. From there, simply progress through the main pathing until you come across the houses that are basically broken and burning on the inside, but at the same time you have a ladder to get to the second floor. Follow that path until you drop down to a very tiny alleyway. Those jars in that alleyway are what you want to break to get to the next Jarling. In the Strange Stench main mission inside of Scaffa Cave, still in the Charnak Mountains, progress through the main mission and the main pathing until you come across this giant room filled with egg sacs for spiders, and you want to go to the top left corner of this room where a large spider sack is next to a table. break the jar that is right next to that table. Now sticking to the first region, the Charnak Mountains, let's move on to the side quest. We're going to start with the Night of Tragedy side quest. Make your way until you get to the Blade Nexus for the Bangao lot. I'm probably butchering that name. But once you're here, follow the main path in this mission until you drop down on a ledge. Once you drop down from that ledge onto the ground, you want to look to your left where a small grouping of jars is. Break those jars to get the Jarling in this side quest. Next is the Blacksmith Heirloom side quest, which is still going to be inside of Scaffa Cave, and this one is at the very beginning of the mission. You don't have to worry about a specific Blade Nexus point. Simply follow the path I'm showing you up to this small ledge where there are a bunch of barrels and one tiny jar that you need to break to get the Jarling. Now let's move on to the second region, the Pell Plateau. Inside of the very first main mission, the Trader Revealed, you want to progress this main mission until you come across the Fallen Citadel Blade Nexus. From there, you want to follow the pathing that I'm showing you, because this one will take you a little bit of time to actually get to. Mainly because you have to fight a bunch of enemies first before you can open up that particular gate. But once you get past that gate, you'll see this very easily broken wall where you're going to find a scroll, but at the same time you find this scroll in the corner, you're also going to find the Jarling sitting in one of the jars on the other corner. Next main mission we're going to cover is going to be the Veiled Knives main mission until you come across this particular Bandit Citadel Blade Nexus, which is going to be your closest Blade Nexus. This one will also take you a while because I'm going to be using in this video, to make it a little bit quicker and not take 35 minutes to show you every location, a shortcut in this particular main mission. But keep in mind, as long as you follow the main path, you will come across this area that I'm showing you, which is going to be filled with dogs, an elite enemy. But once you come across the area that is just crumbled apart, you're going to find this small corner that has a fireplace and a bunch of small jars that you need to break open to actually get the Jarling for this particular main mission. Moving on to the Devoured Village main mission, you want to make your way inside of this main mission all the way until you get to the Sinister Prison Blade Nexus. From there, follow the main path until you come across this very grotesque room filled with bodies, and in the corner you're going to see a set of 3 pots that you can break to get the Jarling. Moving to the Inconceivable Truth main mission, make your way until you come across the underground Shaft Blade Nexus. This is going to be your closest Blade Nexus point for this Jarling. From this Nexus point, continue through the main path until you come across the giant room that is filled with stones that continue to poison you. Once here, you'll see a set of 3 jars on the one long ledge on the right side that you want to break to get the Jarling inside of this mission. Moving on to the second region, the Pell Plateau side quest, you want to move into the Kaleido side quest, and here progress the main path until you come across this room that has 2 tiers. Once in here, you want to go to the first pillar on the right to break the small jar at the foot of it and you get your Jarling. In the Human Silence side quest, you want to make your way to the main cavern stairway Blade Nexus, and this Jarling is very close to this particular Blade Nexus. Literally all you have to do is run to the other side of the room, ignoring the main elite enemy that is in your way to progress the actual mission itself. Break the jars on the other side to get your Jarling before fighting the elite enemy. In the Final Conquest side quest, progress until you come across the Rain-Drenched Training Ground Blade Nexus. From here, all you have to do is continue through the main path once again, and directly across from you where you're going to be ambushed, you're going to see a large jar that you need to break to get the Jarling. Inside of Pavel's Final Words side quest, continue through this mission until you come across the Blade Nexus overrun by bandits. From here, you basically just want to run forward, either taking out the bandits along your way or not at all and ignoring them, and going into the very first room that you see when you get to a longer corridor. To be more specific, the longer corridor that is going to have several different rooms that you can go into. In here, you'll see a set of 3 jars you can break to get the Jarling. Moving to the Why Have You Forsaken Us side quest, simply progress this one because there really isn't any close Blade Nexus point, and when you reach this giant laboratory filled with a bunch of different cages, you will know that you are in the right spot. Now, before you go down from the balcony that you enter in from, go to the right where you see a bunch of bookshelves. There will be a single jar you can break to get the Jarling in this mission. In the Escaping Linon Mine side quest, progress through this quest until you come across the Mine Number 2 Central Management Hub Blade Nexus. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but it'll be very obvious when you get here. From this Blade Nexus point, progress through the main path until you drop down a ledge into a giant room filled with a bunch of different spider sacks that are also going to ambush you. There's no better way to describe than just going forward from where you drop down to where you see a bunch of people hanging. There is going to be a small jar on a ledge that has the Jarling. In the Pell Last Command side quest, a very short side quest, simply progress the main path until you come across the small stone bridge that goes to a tiny island. Once you get here, you know you're in the right spot, and there's a couple of jars next to one of the prisoners you free that will have the Jarling in it. Finally, moving into region number 3, which is the Heart of Pell inside of the first main mission, which is going to be the Witch's Castle. Enter through the very main door where you have to defeat one of the demons and take the path up the stairs on the left. From here, simply make your way to the second floor of the library on this left path. Until you get to this part, you want to go to the edge where there are a majority of bookshelves. On the left side, looking at the bookshelves on the very end of this small little section, you're going to see a jar to break that will have the Jarling. Moving on to the Hermit Mountains main mission until you get to the Hermit Mountains Blade Nexus. It'll be very obvious which Blade Nexus this is. Follow the path that I'm showing you and take your first long path on the right that takes you past all the plague trees. Simply progress this until you come across a small hole that has a ladder that brings you down to where you will find the bard. Once in here, you'll have to go and knock down the pots that are behind the bard inside the left corner. Inside those jars is going to be the Jarling that you are looking for. It's a very long path, so I want to describe it before letting it play so I don't put this at an extremely high speed. Inside of the Corruptor's Fortress main mission, progress this main mission until you come across the Blade Nexus Massive Gate fast travel point. Once here, progress the main path until you get inside of the tower, and as you progress through the tower, you'll see that there is a square drop down that takes you to a small scaffolding. On the scaffolding will be a bunch of pots you need to break to get the Jarling in this main mission. Moving into the Strange Melody main mission, progress until you come across the Blade Nexus Grand Central Theater fast travel point. Once you get to this point, you actually want to backtrack to the room that you had fought in that elite enemy beforehand, opening up the doors that lead you through the long hallway to get to this fast travel point. You're going to see two statues. You want to take a look at the one on the right side if you're entering in from the old room, or the left side depending on if you're coming from the fast travel point or not. There will be a false wall you can break that inside gives you a bunch of pots you can break to get the Jarling. Moving into the Heart of Pell side quest, inside of the Lacrima side quest, when you defeat your very first elite enemy inside of this area, progress through and very quickly take a left, and inside of an even quicker left, you're going to find a small jar next to barrels that's going to have your Jarling. Inside of the Velus's Axe side quest, progress through this mission until you defeat the elite enemy that jumps out of the giant tube. Once you do that, go past and to the right over the small tiny bridge into the next room immediately on your right, filled with barrels, tubes, and small jars. On the very end wall from where you entered is going to be a small jar to break to get the Jarling. In the Unrequited Love side quest, you want to go inside of the castle up to the left path and all the way up to the second story again, just like the Witch's Castle main mission, up to where you find the library on the second floor. Now when you're looking at the library again, all those bookshelves on the second floor, you want to go to the left side once again, but this time it's going to be inside of two different bookshelves and you're going to be ambushed, so keep that in mind. Once you're done with the ambush, you can break the jar to get the Jarling in this side quest. During this side quest, Atlante the Precise, progress until you come across this Blade Nexus where death lingers. From here, it's a very straightforward shot, but you are going to have to deal with one of the more elite skeleton enemies. Don't worry, getting the Jarling is extremely easy. All you have to do is go to the point where that enemy is spawned, break the jar to the left of the plague tree, and send the Jarling back to dungeon. Now inside of the Crimson Trace side quest, this is the very first Blade Nexus you'll come across, the Bloodstained Fountain, so that doesn't really matter. What does matter is you have to defeat two elite enemies to get to this particular Jarling. You'll notice that this entire side quest is going to be set on top of a giant bridge. So once you go through the second large overhanging archway that accompanies this bridge, you'll see a set of stairs on your left side. Go up those stairs into a small room that you can break the jars in the back of this room to get the Jarling for this side quest. In the last Sentinel side quest, you want to progress until you defeat the elite enemy right in front of this large tower that has a huge staircase. Once you go up this staircase, you want to stop at the very top of these large winding stairs. Before you go to the left to progress the main path for this mission, go to the right where you see a small window and some jars very well hidden in the darkness. Inside these jars is going to be the Jarling for this side quest. Moving on to the Transcendental Sword side quest, this is going to be one of the last Blade Nexuses that you're going to come across, but it is probably going to be one of the easier ones, which is the Veiled Path Blade Nexus. From here, you want to backtrack, and what you want to do is backtrack all the way until you drop down the ladder that brought you up to this giant bridge, all the way next to the fire arrow trap that you usually will trigger when you go through this mission the first time. The jars right next to this trap's exit is going to be a Jarling inside of the three small jars. Inside of the Centurial Order side quest, your closest Blade Nexus point is literally going to be the start of this mission, so progress until you go down this giant staircase and go directly into the first room in front of you. Right next to this piano is going to be a bunch of boxes and jars, and one of the jars is going to be filled with a Jarling. In the Remnants of Chaos side quest, you're basically going to go to the end of the side quest when you are teleported for the third time into this large room, and you'll see this as the teleporter you exit out of. Once you exit out of there, simply go up the small set of stairs and take a left where you'll be ambushed by an invisible enemy, but you'll also be able to break down a small wall that will reveal this secret room with some items inside. But in the very back left corner, you are going to find a small pot that will contain the Jarling. Moving on to the fourth and final region inside of this game, which is going to be Vitalon, the capital of this game. Inside of the Fall of the Empire main mission, you want to progress until you come across this mansion. There really isn't a super close Blade Nexus point to point you to, so simply progress until you come across this mansion, which will be filled with a bunch of different chaos enemies, but progress until you get to the top level of the stairs inside of this mansion, where you're going to see a burning room that allows you to go onto the outside part of this mansion. Inside of this room, right next to the bed, you'll be able to break a couple jars that has the Jarling waiting for you. Inside of the Bloodied Sanctuary main mission inside of the capital region, you want to progress until you get to the path to the Chapel Blade Nexus. This will be your closest one, but it will still be a very long run to get to this Jarling. Progress through the main path until you come across a long hallway that very clearly has cells on each side. Go to the very end, and the last door on your right you can open up and is going to have an ambush, but inside of here you'll also be able to break the jar to get the Jarling for this main mission. I'm going to let this play and not have it go too fast so you can follow along. In the final main mission of the game, the Master of Chaos, progress until you come across the Imperial Palace Garden Blade Nexus. Right here is where you're going to be able to very quickly get your final Jarling. Simply progress forward until you come across the large room that has a large staircase with some enraged enemies on it. Simply go up the staircase to the right side and follow that long path on the right side to the very end, and behind some of the rubble is going to be a jar you can break to get that final Jarling. Moving on to the side quest inside of the fourth region, which is the capital, you want to start with the Disobedience side quest and progress until you get to the Crumbling Resonance Blade Nexus point. From here, all you have to drop down, either deal with the elite enemy or not, and then make your way up the staircase. Once at the top of the stairs, go towards the tree, and at the right of the tree is going to be a small pot to break open to get the Jarling for this side quest. Now, in the Charon's Chain side quest, this is by far going to be the easiest Jarling that you'll be able to get. It's probably even easier than the very first mission to unlock being able to do the Jarlings. Literally in front of the Blade Nexus point, the very first one, you just break the jars and that Jarling is right there. From the beginning of the Birth of Evil side quest, simply progress through the main pathing past all the different dragonkin enemies, and you'll come across a large house on the left that's going to have a little bit of rubble but also a carriage in front of it. You'll be attacked by a couple different large enemies, but once you deal with them, you'll be able to break the jars in front of this small carriage and get the Jarling for yourself. Inside of the Vow side quest, you want to progress until you come across your very first elite enemy that you can kill, and inside of this arena is going to be our starting point, because the only other starting point is the very first Blade Nexus. Follow the pathing as best as you possibly can, because this area can get very confusing very quickly, and I'm going to leave it at a slower speed so you can follow along as much as possible, but know you're going to be dealing with a lot of different skeleton enemies, a lot of different traps along the way if you're not careful, but you'll eventually come across a small room that allows you to have a shortcut back to where you first started with the elite enemy, and inside of here you'll find a couple of the jars that you can break to get the Jarling. Now, at any point throughout your collection of the Jarlings, you can go back to the crevice and interact with Danjin, but you'll have the same interaction until you collect every single one of the Jarlings, and he'll have a different reaction. You'll also notice that the stick he has now fully bloomed into a rose once you have gotten every single one of the Jarlings. Now, the main reason you want to get as many Jarlings as possible is that they are actually a type of currency inside of his shop that has very unique items. You may have noticed it on my armor, but my headpiece is actually a jar itself, and that's some of the unique items that you can get when you get a certain amount of Jarlings. As you can see, the more Jarlings that you have, the more of these unique jar headpieces you can get and unlock and purchase. Of course, at the very top is the lowest rarity, at the very bottom is the highest rarity. So I have one that went well with the spear build that I was using, but in addition to all these different jar headpieces, you'll be able to purchase some of the interesting consumables, but you'll also be able to go and get very unique crafting items. Now, the crafting crafting items themselves aren't related to how many Jarlings you have, they just unlock as you progress through the game, but you might as well do the 2-for-1 deal, get better jar head pieces, and get better crafting materials as you go through the game. But that is every single one of the Jarling locations inside of the First Berserker Khazan. If you found this walkthrough guide helpful, please let me know by hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below, so again, that I know that you did find it helpful, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.